So for the next bit, I'm going to select these faces here. So I've identified where most of the stretching is. I can select this by hitting faces and try to select them this way, or I can select this in my 3D viewport. So what I've done is I've just selected the faces from this point. So if I hit face, hold down my shift, and then I can go and just select the faces that I want. Another way to kind of select the faces that you want, for instance, is if I hold down a tab button and hold the left button, click down, I can then go, if I hold the tab down and left click, I can go select the faces that I want this way. If you just go along and select the faces that I've selected, in this case, just undo that. So what I've done is I've just gone individually by clicking these and holding down shift. I've kind of selected these faces in this area, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a planar map from the top view. Now you can use a planar map. If I go back into my UVs here, I can use a planar map from the top view. Again, you can project that, but just to make it a bit different, I'm going to use camera based. So what this is, it takes a shot at the UVs from the angle that you're looking at it. So if I do that, you can see that it's created a new island here, and it's taken up pretty much most of the space in that bit. So if I select on that, if I double click on, right click, hit UVs, double click on that, I can now move that around over here. You can see that there's obviously some stretching going on in that bit. I can potentially move that down a little bit and try to control that a little bit better. I can stitch this up so it kind of gives me that this UV unwrap like this, and then I can scale it all in, or I can potentially take this and break it into half and unwrap it so it kind of goes to the side. Now this all depends on how you want to use your actual unwrap. We want to maximize the face area. I mean, a lot of this can be hidden under the hair or something, so we're not too bothered on how things are going to turn out on this, and we don't want to give away too much of the UV space, so we can do it so it kind of appears on the side. So I can go in and separate this as a separate shell. So this kind of appears on the side there, and what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna level this out a little bit so we have it at an angle. So you can already see how this is gonna stitch. You can see that this bit is gonna stitch with this, and it's gonna come along like that. We have to be careful on how we modify this, because we don't want to distort our progress that we've already done in our area. So what we can do is we can rotate like this angle to a certain level. So I'm just gonna go in and undo that, maybe move this around a little bit and just pull it down. I'm doing this by manually. There's multiple ways of doing this. Like I said, the reason why I'm taking less care of this on this side is because I'm not too worried about how it's going to be used. So for instance, if I now select these UVs and go to my sew UV edges, you'll see that this kind of does that, it sews that together. I might want to do the same on this bit here. Just pull this down a bit, and what I'm going to do later on is I'm going to do what I did before, and I'm going to use the optimize tool and relax tool, and I'm going to stitch these points together. I can quickly grab this and go to polygon and move sew UV edges. Gets a bit trickier on this part because we don't want to have too much extreme stretching in that. You can see there's some bits that are going a bit wild in there. Let me just select that for a second and hit so you can see there's a lot of stretching going on there. Just to fix that, I'm gonna also use the tool that I just used, and I'm going to go into my UV mode and start stretching some of this area out, or hitting optimize in this case, and start to tackle this area. Like I said, I might, in this instance, I want to probably scale the size out a little bit, and I'm using optimize brush here, and I'm just dragging some of these bits down to kind of create a more now there's, like I said, there's multiple ways of doing this. You could have just created a face, but when we scale this down, we don't want to give too much space or waste too much of our face space, so that's why I decided to do it this way and create a seam in the middle. We can repeat this just on the other side now, and then we'll see how it starts looking. Try to roughly get that in the same angle. Just gonna rotate that around. Like modeling, even UV has multiple ways of getting to the place that you want to be, but it's just a matter of experimenting and seeing what way works with you. I'm just going to turn this off for now, just so it doesn't come in the way, so I can see what I'm doing. Just repeating what I did on the other side, just to help a little bit. Gonna select these UVs, roughly position them in the area, and then when I optimize and use my UV brush, when I use my unfold brush, that will take care of the other bits that's not capturing. So try to move these UVs as close as possible. Of course, you're gonna have some problems, but the idea is try to get it as close, and then we can use the brushes. So I've just roughly pushed that in. I'm going to select all this area. I'm going to go to move and sew edges. While we've got this menu open, it's on this side. Polygons, move and sew edges, you can see here, and I'm going to go back onto my optimize UVs brush and just go over this like I was doing before, and spread this out, smoothen this in some areas here, and move that. If I just turn this off and turn on my checker pattern on, now you can see that the UVs are much better. Of course there's a seam here, but I'm not too worried about that because my hairline or whatever that goes on top might cover that, or even the way I texture might help me fix that later on. So if I scale this down now, I can fit this into my texture space. I can, to maximize your space, try to rotate the model around and fit it into your space, which area to do. So I'm just gonna scale this roughly down. Now here's my model kind of unwrapped. You can see there's a bit of stretching in that area. I can go back in and use the brushes again. And this area here, I'm using the unfold right now, and it's consistent in most part, and that kind of gives me my unwrap for the model. Now, a lot of the times people tend to kind of even separate their face completely, and just to maximize the space on the actual model, especially if you're going to be doing 3D texturing later on. You want to maximize this space, because that's what's going to be the character of the face itself. We utilized most of that in this case. Sometimes people even like stretch the face out, so they kind of using most of that space in the 3D space. Now the thing that we've got left is the bit that we separated in the beginning, our eye. So I'm going to go in here, and this is the mouth and the eyepiece that we had. We can just unwrap this the way it is, like for instance, if I can take these two pieces, I can show you another tool to unwrap something, or smooth UVs. If you hit smooth UVs and hit unfold, you'll see that this kind of unwraps itself. So if I keep dragging and pulling that, do the same on that piece, and that will give us a, if I hit relax and then unfold that again, and that will give me kind of a flattened out piece there. So this was for the inside of the eye, and of course they've kind of increased in size, so I'm just going to move this back down and look at how big it is there. So it's fairly small. Just going to position them somewhere on my texture space, so if I bring in detail or bring my normal map, it's not going to give me a problem. Just keep in mind when you're doing the level of detail, like sometimes you can do unwrapping in ZBrush or other applications, and it gives you like a quick unwrap, and what happens is this whole area here, the face area, kind of shrinks to a much smaller part, and you want to maximize the size of that rather than it being the other way around, because this is going to be, this bit here from your ear to your face is going to be a big part of the model, so you have to think about that. It's important that you do. So this was a part that's still left unwrapped, and this is the whole interior mouth structure that we had. So in order to unwrap that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select faces. I'm going to select all of this, and let's just start off by using something like UVs. We can hit automatic, but that's going to give us too many pieces and we don't want that. Let's go for something like simple. Let's go for planar. Now what the planar mapping did was, if I move this across, so just make sure when you unwrap and you've already positioned something, to move it across into this space, so it's going to be harder to select it if things are sitting on top of each other. I'm just going to turn the checker pattern off right now. No one's going to see the mouth from the inside. I've got this face, it's kind of sitting in the same position. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select an edge like this one going right to the top. Make sure you do it inside the 3D inside the UV space. So double click on this edge, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to hit split UVs. Now what that's done is it's created a seam for me. It's kind of broke the UVs, and by clicking that again, make sure you select the edge and hit split UVs. Now if I was to flatten this out, so if I hit unfold, let me just keep this open, so I'm going to hit unfold, and you'll see that that kind of unfolds the whole, flattens out the whole area for me. So by just clicking that, And what I did was I first got a flat unwrap of that, and then I selected one seam, one part where I wanted to separate it from, and that was this seam, and hit unfold, and that will kind of give me the whole unwrap for that bit. So this bit is not as important. I can scale this down and position it somewhere on the UV map as well, so it doesn't need to be that big. It's kind of hidden, so I can just put this onto this side here. And that's my unwrap pretty much done there. Now sometimes people tend to use this texture space also to, you know, maybe add in extra pieces of parts to the actual unwrap. Like sometimes people would have ears there, or maybe in some cases they also have eyeballs. It all depends on what your model's going to be displayed on. So if you're really struggling with the with using a engine or game engine that you're using, maybe a phone, you're developing a game for a phone application where you're only allowed to use one texture space for a whole head, you might even have your eye kind of textured here, like you'll go in. But for what we're trying to do, you can put a whole new texture on the actual eyeball rather than it being separate. So in this case now, my model is pretty much unwrapped, flattened out. I can start using that to texture. Of course, if I was to texture in Photoshop, it's going to be much harder to achieve, but we're going to be texturing this in ZBrush, or you can use a 3D application to texture that. So that's pretty much it for unwrapping. When you're doing yours, take much more time. Try to reduce that stretching if you're getting any, and try to get it as close as that to your onto your own models. The process is quite straightforward. It looks like it can be a tedious process just because you have to do so much unwrapping in order to get your models textured. But with 3D texturing now especially, it makes your life much more easier because you don't have to paint in 2D anymore. So thank you for that.